Hello, Bible readers. It's Tuesday, January 5th. We're reading from 2 Samuel, finishing 2 Samuel today. I thought we were finishing it yesterday. I read through the end and then see that here I should say more about chapter 24, and then Psalms 57, 95, 97, 98, 99, and John chapter 6, verses 22 to 59. So I'm going to start with John. Passover is the background to John chapter 6. John does not want to erase the memory of God's gift of manna, which evokes a revelation of God. God is revealed through manna, the gift of manna every day, through the law. But the revelation of God in the law is not the end of God's action in history. John knows that the Jews and many disciples are unable to go beyond the laws of Moses, Mosaic traditions, as they seek to respond to God's love, grace, and mercy. So Moses, manna, the law, that's for many during John's time, that's all good enough and all there ever needs to be. Maybe you've known this to happen in communities that just, they're content. They're satisfied with the way things always have been done, and that's as far as their hope will go, and that's as much progress as we need. But Jesus says, I'm the bread of life. The old traditions are not to be done away with, but they're just a shadow of what's really happening through Jesus, of what God is revealing here. Like God is revealing a whole new thing. The Christian reinterpretation of Moses' traditions then, although welcomed by some, bring pain and division to the Johannine community. Jews and many disciples become outraged. And, sorry, I dropped my notes there. So that's what John is trying to get at, that there's this whole new thing to bring even a more abundant life, and that gets met with some opposition. Our Psalms, Psalm 57, God's steadfast love and faithfulness are the fundamental realities in the universe, more than anything else, which is a hard thing to say sometimes. Psalm 95 is an unusual enthronement psalm because of how it ends. It ends with a word of prophetic exhortation, which is biblical scholars speak for a religious kick in the butt. And most enthronement psalms are simply, God is king, let him reign, blah, blah, blah. But this one ends with a little "her" at the end to have us question our own fidelity to God's word. Psalm 97, my commentary says, first thing it says, Psalm 97 is honest. It acknowledges the reality of evil, that evil does oppose God. But behind this real world, that many would say, the real world is just evil, the psalmist claims something that's even more real, more true, and that is that God reigns. Psalm 98, this is a hymn in our tradition. Many who are listening to this probably know it's one of those really earthy hymns that we have. Classrooms and labs, loud boiling test tubes sing to the Lord a new song. That's kind of how this psalm feels. It feels bouncy and new. Sing to God something new, because God is doing something new. And then Psalm 99 concludes a collection of enthronement psalms. That's kind of the theme for today. Some might imagine that a king would be unapproachable, aloof, transcendent. This God King, claims Psalm 99, is involved, committed, forgiving, full of love. Kind of redefines what enthronement means as we think of God being enthroned. And the last chapter of 2 Samuel, I'm just going to read from my commentary. To read this final story of David is to realize how casually those who hold authority and power exercise it without considering how the bureaucracies of power are experienced by those at the margins of society. This census, for those who have power and privilege, a census is like no big deal. When I got my census this year, it was no big deal. I filled it out. But for those at the margins of our society, it is a big deal. And those with power many times just don't even see how their power affects others. And that's what we see in this last chapter. And then, of course, it says, what makes this story remarkable, however, is that David, in the midst of his own exercise of self-serving bureaucratic power, recognizes his actions for what they were, sinful, and he confesses. And of course, how does God respond? But with mercy. And so it's an appropriate way for 2 Samuel to end with a king wielding power in a way that is oppressive to some, then recognizes his sinfulness, asks for forgiveness, and receives it. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.